this is kind of a holding room. And if you collect Fords, yes, you're going to more than likely have a 1932 Ford, being the first year of the V8. And I thought it was rather neat just thinking about what Henry Ford did with his idea of a V8. You know, him recognizing that Chevrolet was starting to outsell Ford with their six-cylinder. So he came up with a V8, and he also had a press release. And in the press release, he had a chassis set up in this style with a dash mounted on a piece of just steel here. And you know, had some really good pictures, so we just went ahead and used some of our premier 32 parts to build this chassis in the same style as the press release car. And of course, then I bought another 32 Ford, a little two-door, and when it was delivered to me, Bonnie and Clyde were present, so we set them in here. But this is now set up for the little sport coupe body over here. A little, all the metal work's been done. It's ready to be restored, or even the three-window coupe that's just back from Wisconsin. There's a gentleman there that just does fabulous metal work, so he has gone over this little 32 three-window and has got it completed. And then it just ends up being a collection of things in here. Of course, I've got my first car here from 1952, and of course it's restored as well. Yes, I want to share some excitement that I had with you, Peterson Group. The Cobra experience in Martinez, California had provided or worked with, I guess, 20th Century Fox on the movie Ford versus Ferrari. And they had a raffle for one of the 427 Cobras that was used in the movie. And I bought a few tickets for that, just considering it's going to a good cause. And I was told they had like 18,000 tickets. I was detailing cars on a Saturday, didn't have my phone with me. I got back to my vehicle and I saw that I'd gotten a couple of calls from California, so I just called the number, and a sweet little voice, Emily, answered the phone, said, "Oh, it's Gary. Gary, you won the Cobra." So this is the Ford versus Ferrari 427 Cobra that the Cobra Experience raffled, and I was the lucky winner. Really amazing day. All of our cars have stories, and I think this is a rather unique story. This is one of the Ford drag team cars, 1969 Cobra Jet, and it was campaigned in Fremont, California. Folgers Ford was one of the sponsors, and many of you have probably seen pictures of this car with half of it painted Acapulco blue and half Wimbledon white. But I always just loved Krager wheels, never had any when I was younger, so I saw this car at an auction and I ended up acquiring it. And it had a stack of paperwork with it. And I was going through that paperwork, and it mentioned that Bob and Lucy Below, who raced this car, had retired to the Houston area. Well, a friend of mine came up with a phone number, and it was the fax number. Well, then she found the address, so I wrote a letter to them telling them that I'd like to have a chance to visit with them. It was about 5 days, and I got a call from Lucy Below. Well, Lucy Below was the driver for this car in 1969 and 1970, and she won the Winter Nationals. She won quite a number of races. So she and Bob couldn't wait to come visit me, and they're well into their 80s. And I loved hearing the stories. And I, even asked, "What did y'all pull this car with?" She said, "Oh, yellow Cadillac." And she said, "We got lots of attention on the road with the yellow Cadillac with this on an open trailer behind it." But it's 19 neat to have met the couple, and Lucy is still in love with her car, because she mentioned when she called me, "Oh, you found my car." So neat stories. Another car that got stuck in the boss room is this little 1964 and a half Indianapolis 500 pace car. And it was not the actual pace car for the race, but Lee Iacocca had about 180 of these cars assembled, and he presented those to the top Ford dealerships at the Indianapolis 500 and presented them with a key for them to drive to their destination. So a little 260 standard shift, little 64 and a half Mustang, rather unique. Then we get to these 1969 and 1970 Boss 429s. And the 1970s had the black hood rather than body color. This one here was the Grabber Orange, and it spent its life on I-10. Houston's right here on I-10. It was sold in Beaumont, Texas, and a policeman had this car, and it even had a trailer hitch on it. He used it to carry his little fishing boat to the coast. And then he had an engine problem, parked it in his garage, and it's sat in the garage for 40 years or so. So it was a very neat car to find, low mileage, just a great car, and love the color combination. And of course then the most popular 1970 Boss 429 was the Grabber Blue white interior, so that's one of those. And yes, another car that's got stuck in the Boss or the 429 section, because I pulled out a red 69 Boss 429 that's going to go through the Mecum sale. But this is the 1969 Boss 302 with white interior. And just above it is 1969. One of the first 50 Boss 429s, those were the Mach 1s that were pulled off of the assembly line and taken to Carcraft to go ahead and convert to the Boss 429. Just so happens that this Royal Maroon 69 Boss 429, it's also one of the first 50. But then, even more exciting than that, is this Raven Black Boss 429. This is the first 1969 Boss 429 serial number sold to the public. That was fun because I had bought this other Grabber Blue 1970 Boss 429, knowing that it was the first 70 Boss sold to the public. So it's kind of surprising that the 2 years, the two cars first sold end up with in the same collection. And when you have Bosses, you need to also have the last Boss. This is 1971 Boss 351. This is pewter with black interior, standard interior. And then here's the Acapulco Blue with white interior, Boss 351. Of course, all of them were 4 speeds. None of them had air conditioner. But these were said to be the fastest Mustang for quite a number of years. And I don't know when it was surpassed, but possibly by 2007 with the GT500, something of that sort. But they're fun little cars, or big cars, compared to the earlier Bosses. Now we're going back in time. Most of the automobiles in here are 1932 Fords, 1932 through 1950s. But I have both 32 Ford street rods and totally original. For instance, this little Roadster pickup here, it has a 1966 Shelby engine in it with a C4 automatic transmission, column mount shift. The next one here has a 351 Boss in it with a 671 blower. And then the next was a Dick Rodwell car out of Salt Lake City, and it has the aluminum block Corvette 350 471 blower with air conditioner. So it's a great driver. So the Cabriolet as well, it's a street rod. So there's several of those, and then here we've got a few roadsters. The first one there is the one I've enjoyed driving to the LA Roadster Show. It's got a little 347 stroker with a C4 automatic. So it did well driving from here to LA multiple times. And then this is a little 32, it's got a stretched chassis because it's got a 392 Hemi with two 4s. And then another little small red Ram Hemi 5-speed roadster. We have about 3 rows of original 32 Fords that are principally stock. I'm seeing this little 4-door. It's got a 283 Corvette engine in it with a 39 3-speed, but the rest of these are stock. This is a Model B Roadster, so it's the 4-cylinder, the little black wheels. Yes, no spare on the back of it because that was extra. So I'm told that yes, originally that car was about $395. Then you get to the Deluxe, so okay, you're stepping up. You get a spare with it. This is a little standard V8 5-window, and then here's the Deluxe 5-window coupe. And the biggest difference here is we don't have the cowl lights. The dash, the moldings are just painted kind of a gray color, whereas the Deluxe has the wood grain painted. And then here was the doctor's car. That came out of a museum in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and it's got quite a number of the frills on it, the options, as well as the one that's up on the wall here. And then a little 1932 Ford pickup, and all of the pickups were 4-cylinders. They didn't put a V8 in the 1932 Ford pickup, but this is just black, standard, and then we've got the Brewster green up there on the wall. One of the questions that we're often asked, well, what was your first car? What did you learn to drive first? Well, mine happened to be this 1942 Ford tractor. So it was my granddad's, and we'd visit, and I had a chance to learn to drive, and I couldn't wait to go visit just because I didn't want to really work on the farm, but I did want to drive his tractor. So then it sat there for years and years, and probably about 20 years later, I went back, and it was parked there among the trees, and fortunately had a chainsaw and shovel, and shoveled the sand and cut a few branches and loaded it up and restored the first vehicle I learned to drive with. It's a Ford.